Let me begin with how to fill out the I-485 form. Just remember to make sure that you're using the most recent up-to-date version of the form, as well as type or print in black ink. So we're going to start here, where it says A number, and you're going to enter your alien number, which is found on your NOAA 2 Notice of Action. It's hidden away over here where it says beneficiary name, so you can just enter that number here in this field. And as you can see, it asks you to enter this number on every page on the top right-hand corner. So I would make sure you fill this out beforehand. A tip is to make sure to use this A number on any supplementary documents for additional evidence as well. Part 1, information about the beneficiary, i.e. the non-American citizen. So question 1 asks for your current legal name, and this is the name of the beneficiary, i.e. the non-US citizen. So in my case, it would be my husband. So I typed in his last name here, his first name here, and as he doesn't have any middle names, I wrote NA. I put NA instead of leaving any spaces blank just to let USCIS know that I have not unintentionally or accidentally left this blank. Question 2 asks other names you have used since birth. This wasn't relevant for us, so we put NA. However, let's say you're the non-US citizen and you're the female who's changing her name. In question 1, you can put your new married name, which is the name you're taking from your husband. And here, in question 2, you can write your pre-married maiden name, which was your name before marriage, even if you haven't legally changed it yet. A lot of people question, which name should I use? My married name or my previous maiden name? And honestly, as you're going to be including your marriage certificate as supporting evidence, you can use either or, as USCIS will be able to make the connection that you have gotten married on a K-1 visa and that you're filling this in as your new married name. Question 3 asks your date of birth, so just remember it's the month, day, and year in that format. It also asks, have you ever used any other date of birth? We wrote no. If you answered yes, there's a space to fill in any other information. We wrote NA. On page 2, remember to include your A number here at the top. Question 4 asks, do you have an alien registration number? So we clicked yes, and we entered our A number here, which again is found on your NOAA 2. Question 5 asks, have you ever used or been assigned any other A number? In our case, it's no, as my husband has never had one before, so we wrote NA. Question 6 asks gender, so we put down male. Question 7 asks for their place of birth. So we wrote down the city, which is London, the country of birth, United Kingdom, and country of citizenship or nationality, which is where he immigrated from, and again, we put down United Kingdom. Question 9 asks for a USCIS online account number, and we wrote NA. You won't actually have one yet. You'll get a USCIS online account number after submitting this form to USCIS. And they'll send you another NOAA 1 Notice of Action. And this will have instructions on how to set up an online account with USCIS, and they'll provide you an online account number. Question 10 asks about their recent immigration history. So it asks for the passport or travel document number used at last arrival, and this is the passport number. It then asks the expiration date of the passport, Again, we filled that in with the month, the day, and the year. It asked the country that issued the passport, so we put down United Kingdom as it's from the United Kingdom. It then asks the non-immigrant visa number used during the most recent arrival. And this is found on your K-1 visa in red writing. It then asks the date the non-immigrant visa was issued, and this will be under the issue date on the K-1 visa. The next question is the place and date of the last arrival into the United States. So my husband entered in Orlando, Florida, and so this is the city of his first point of entry. So let's say that we had connecting flights and our final destination was California. Then we would still put down Orlando, as this is the first city that he entered into the United States. And then it asks for the date of the last arrival, which is the day that he entered. For question 11, it asks when you last arrived into the United States. Again, this is still information about the beneficiary, the non-US citizen. You're going to check the first box. I was inspected at a port of entry and admitted as a K-1 fiance visa. We then put NA for the other two boxes. On page 3, again, remember to type in or write in your A number. Question 12 asks if you were issued a Form I-94. Provide the information from your most recent I-94. So I'm going to put my beneficiary's last name and first name, and then I'm going to enter his I-94 arrival departure record number. So to get this record number, you're going to log on to the I-94 CBP website. Once on the CBP website, you'll click on Get Most Recent I-94. You'll fill out the beneficiary's information here on this page. And then you should see the most recent I-94. The arrival departure record number will be displayed here. It asks for your expiration date, which again can be found on your I-94. So we wrote that here. And then for immigration status on Form I-94, we wrote K-1. Question 13 asks, was your last arrival the first time you were physically present in the United States? We wrote no because my husband has been in the United States to visit me before. However, you would check yes if it is your first time entering the USA. Question 14 asks, what is your current immigration status if it has changed since your last arrival? So we just wrote NA. And question 15 asks the expiration date of your current immigration status, which is the same date written on your I-94. So you can see that we wrote the same date. Question 16 asks, have you ever been issued an alien crewman visa? So we wrote no, and this is basically if you've been issued a C1D visa, which is primarily for people who work on a cruise ship. So if you have worked on a cruise ship and been issued this visa, you can click yes. But for the majority, I'm going to assume it's no. And in our case, it was no. Similarly, question 17 asks, did you last arrive in the United States to join a vessel as a seaman or crewman? And we checked no, as we entered on a K-1 visa. Question 18 asks for your current US physical address. So that's the address where you'll be living, which is more than likely going to be the same as the US petitioner. So I wrote down my husband's name and our current address, the city, the state, and the zip code. It then asks the date you first resided at this address. So we just wrote down the day of his arrival into the US, as this was his first time living at this address. The next question is this your mailing address? So we checked yes. We put NA for any alternative address, as we are going to reside here and this is our only mailing address. On page 4, once again, remember to write down your A number. The first question asks, have you resided at your current address for at least 5 years? So we check no, as my husband has only just moved to the US. As we answered no, we had to provide prior addresses that he's lived at for the last 5 years. So we wrote down his name, his street name, and address that he was living at in the United Kingdom. And we wrote the date from and the date till, which was pretty much the day he left the UK to come to the US. If you need more space to write more addresses, you can use the last page for additional information. To use this page, you need to reference the question you are answering. So you'll type in page 4, part 1, and that this is item or question number 18. As my husband has only ever lived in one address, we wrote NA for the next question. You can leave this section blank if it's the same as above. Question 19 is in relation to their Social Security card. So it asks, has the Social Security Administration ever officially issued a Social Security card to you? So you can select no if you have never been issued a Social Security card. If you have had one before, you can click yes. Now, your Social Security number will always be the same, so it won't change even if you're entering on a new visa. In our case, Suraj has been issued a Social Security card before and a Social Security card number, so we type that in here. The next question asks, do you want the Social Security Administration to issue you a Social Security card? And we checked yes. So what they do is issue you a new Social Security card. His previous Social Security card had the words "not authorized for employment" on it. But as you're applying for a green card, this new Social Security card will have no restrictions on it. So if a potential employer asks to see your Social Security card, there won't be any discrepancies regarding it. We then checked yes for the next box, which is just the consent for disclosure. Page 5, part 2. So question 1 asks, are you filing for adjustment of status with the Executive Office for immigration review while in removal, exclusion, or deporting proceedings? You're going to check no, as this doesn't apply to us. Question 2 asks for the receipt number of your underlying petition. And this is your WAC number that you received with the original I-129F petition, which should be on your NOAA 1. And the priority date is your NOAA 1 date. So ours was, for example, May the 2nd, 2024. The next question asks, who am I filing this I-485 form as? And you're going to select Principal Applicant. You can write NA for this next section, as you're only filling it out if you had checked the derivative applicant box. Question 3A asks under which category are you applying? So you're only going to check this one, which is person admitted to the United States as a fiance or child of a fiance of a US citizen K1, K2 non-immigrant. So we can completely skip page 6 as we've already filled out question 3A. Page 7, again, doesn't really apply to us. Just remember to fill in your A number at the top here. So for 3D, we left that blank and just wrote NA in the empty fields. For 3G, we wrote NA and continued on to page 8. On page 8, part 3, the question asks, I am requesting an exemption from submitting an affidavit of support because, and you're going to select box 1F. None of these exemptions apply, as it's mandatory for us to submit a proof of financial support. I, as the petitioner, I'm going to financially support my beneficiary immigrating to the USA, and I'm going to show you how to fill out the I-864 proof of financial support form later in the video. Part 4 asks, have you ever applied for an immigrant visa to obtain permanent residence status at a US embassy or US consular abroad? You're going to select no. You may be confused, but you'll select no because we only filled out the DS-160, which is for non-immigrant visa applicants. As we selected no in question 1, we do not need to answer questions 2 through 4. Question 5 asks, have you previously applied for permanent residence while in the United States? So we check no. And question 6, we check no as it does not apply to us. Question 7 asks about the beneficiary's employment and education history. So it's asking for all of your employment and education history for the last 5 years. So on question 7, we filled out the employer, which is Amazon UK, and we wrote down his occupation as data analyst. And you're filling this out for your most recent employer. On the next page, we typed in the address of the employer and included the start date and the end date. Question 8 allows you to write your second most recent employer. So we filled that out with the company name, his occupation, the address of the employer, as well as the start and end date of my beneficiary's employment. If you do need more space, you can always use the last sheet of paper for additional information. Just remember to write down that it's page 9, part 4, and a continuation of item number 8. Part 5 asks information about the beneficiary's parents. So question 1, we wrote down my husband's father's last name, his first name, and wrote NA for the middle name. Question 2 asks for parent 1's name at birth if different than above. So we just wrote NA. We then wrote my beneficiary's father's date of birth in question 3. And on the next page, for question 4, it asks for their country of birth, so we wrote United Kingdom. Question 5 then asks information about parent number 2. So for question 5, we wrote down my husband's mother's last name and her first name, and we wrote NA for the middle name. Then similarly as above, for question 6, we just wrote NA as she doesn't have any other names. For question 7, we wrote her date of birth. And for question 8, we wrote her country of birth. Just as a note, if you do not know your parent's name or they've passed away, you can just write deceased or unknown in these fields. Part 6 is information about your marital history. So question 1 asks, what is your current marital status? So you're going to select married, as you're now filling out this form after you've been married. Question 2 asks, if you are married, is your spouse a current member of the U.S. Armed Forces or U.S. Coast Guard? I am not, so we selected no. Question 3 asks, how many times have you been married? So we selected 1, as this is both of our first marriages. The next section asks information about your current marriage. So question 4 asks your current spouse's legal name. So now this is going to be the U.S. citizen. So for instance, in our case, I wrote my last name, my first name, and typed in NA for middle name. It then asks for the spouse's A number. I, the U.S. citizen and petitioner, am a U.S. citizen, so I do not have an A number. Question 6 asks for the petitioner's date of birth. And question 7 asks for the country of birth, which is United States. Question 8 asks for the U.S. petitioner's current address. So I filled that out here with the name, apartment number, the city, the state, the zip code, and the country, which is the United States. The next page, page 11, part 6, asks for information about your marital history continued. And question 9 asks place of marriage to your current spouse. So we got married in a town called Marathon here in Florida in the United States, and we wrote down our date of marriage here. Question 10 asks, is your current spouse applying with you? So you're going to select no, as it is only the non-U.S. citizen beneficiary who is applying for a green card and residency. Next, the form asks information about prior marriages, if any. In our case, this is our first marriage, so we filled out the rest of the page with NA. But if you have been married before, you will need to fill out this section. Page 12, part 7, is information about your children. Question 1 asks, indicate the total number of all living children anywhere in the world, including adult sons and daughters that you have. In our case, we wrote none, as neither of us have any children. If you do have children, you would fill this section out here. If your application does include a K2, you would fill out question 2 with their name and information. And also check the box that says yes, this child is also applying now on a separate I-485 form. Part 8 asks for the biographic information about the beneficiary, the non-U.S. citizen. So for question 1, you're going to select their ethnicity. It asks Hispanic or Latino or not Hispanic or Latino. Question 2 asks their race. Question 3 asks their height in feet and inches. Question 4, you're going to enter their weight in pounds. For question 5, eye color, you're going to select only one of the boxes within this list. And similarly for question 6, you're going to select their hair color from the below list and only select one box. Part 9 begins a whole bunch of security questions. So question 1 asks, have you ever been a member of, involved in, or in any way associated with any organization, association, fund, foundation, party, club, society, or similar group in the United States or in any other location in the world? We selected no. As we selected no, we just wrote NA in all of the boxes under Organization 1 and Organization 2, and then we continued on to the next page. So this section asks a lot of security questions, such as, have you ever been denied admission to the United States or denied a visa? I would suggest reading these very carefully and checking either yes or no in accordance to your situation. I don't believe there are any trick questions here. They are fairly basic yes or no questions. Just be careful. For example, you're only answering questions 20 and 21 if you answered question 19. So I would just read these questions carefully. Again, question 22 is another security question on this page, so we selected no. Here is page 15, and as you can see in our answers, we read through them and just selected either yes or no, or left some items blank that weren't actually relevant to us. We did the same here for page 16. And once again here for page 17. Part 9 asks about the public charge and ground of inadmissibility. As K-1 visa applicants, we are not exempt from the public charge ground of inadmissibility. So for question 56, we check the box on page 19, which is I do not fall under any of the exempt categories listed above, and will complete items number 57 to 66. As we check this box, we now need to complete items number 57 to 66. So question 57 asks, what is the size of your household? So we wrote down 2, as it's just the 2 of us. Question 58 asks for your annual household income. And this is just the petitioner's income, as my husband cannot work in the USA yet. So I checked what my household income is. Question 59 asks to identify the total value of your household assets. So I checked the box that's relevant to my assets as well as the value of my assets. And question 60 asks to identify the total value of your household liabilities. So I selected what was relevant to me. Question 61 asks, what is the highest degree or grade of school you have completed? So this goes back to the beneficiary, non-US citizen, the applicant on this form. So my husband selected bachelor's degree. Question 62 asks you to list any certification, licenses, or skills. You can put whatever is relevant. If you have a skill or something like first aid, but we just selected NA as it's not really relevant to our petition. Question 63 asks, have you ever received supplemental security income or temporary assistance for needy families? So we just selected no. Question 64 asks, have you ever received long-term institutionalization at government expense? So we selected no. Question 65 relates to any benefits received, so we just typed in NA. And for question 66, we also typed in NA. Question 67 begins a string of yes or no security questions as before. So I suggest reading these thoroughly and answering what is relevant to your specific case. But we checked the no boxes as none of these apply to us. Similarly, for page 21, we read through these and checked what was relevant to us and primarily selected no. Page 22, part 10, asked for the applicant's contact information. So question 1 asks for the telephone number. So if your beneficiary doesn't have a phone number yet, you can always put the petitioner's number here. So for question 1, we wrote down my husband's telephone number. And on question 3, we wrote down his email address. Question 4 then requires a signature. So just remember, when you print this form out, this signature must be signed by hand. And remember to sign this form, otherwise your application will be rejected. And next to it, we just typed out today's date. Part 11 relates to an interpreter. As we're filling out this form by ourselves, we didn't have an interpreter or use an interpreter, so we just filled out the rest of the fields as NA. Similarly, on page 23, we just filled out NA. For part 13, it says do not complete part 13 as it's for the USCIS officer to fill out at your interview. Just as a note, we did not go through an interview at all. Our case was approved automatically after mailing our application to USCIS. Page 24 is the final page, which is part 14, additional information. Just remember to fill out your name and a number on this page, even if you aren't using this form for any additional